She's an icon, she's mother, queen behavior. Anyone who uses Twitter to participate in the discourse around the newest movies and TV shows has certainly come across these terms in reference to specific female characters. But what do these tweets actually mean? What makes a female figure an icon, and who decides which character deserves the icon status and which doesn't? In this video essay, we are going to analyze the icon status of certain female characters as defined by the 21st century queer community, specifically by gay men on Twitter, and try to pinpoint why and how these icons are created and homaged by said media consumers. The first question we need to pose to ourselves is, what is an icon? Until the first decades of the 20th century, the traditional meaning of icon in reference to a person was almost strictly that of a religious emblem, but ever since, the word has steadily acquired a new meaning. The icon we know and love today originated in the era of the star system between the 1920s and the 1960s in Hollywood. The star system was the method of creating, promoting, and exploiting stars in Hollywood films. These carefully manufactured public figures went to become the most prominent emblems of Hollywood and cinema in general, creating a cult of personality around the figure of the actor, which was now capable of gathering thousands of adoring fans all over the world. Sounds familiar? Nowadays, under the definition of icon, the Oxford Dictionary reads, and I quote, "A famous person or thing that people admire and see as a symbol of a particular idea, way of life, etc." Unquote. Starting from this definition, we can already highlight an essential element of iconicity. Being an icon means to be, to a certain degree, relatable to a group of people. In this regard, the concept of iconicity is analyzed in Daniel Hurwitz's The Star as Icon, Celebrity in the Age of Mass Consumption. Star icons, Hurwitz says, epitomize the power of the media by representing the audience's dreams and desires. This identification between the audience, their desires, and the icon makes the phenomenon all the more interesting and applicable to different contexts, such as the one of the gay community, which brings us to our next question. What is a gay icon? Well, it's an icon for gay people, in our case of study for gay men. The gay icon doesn't necessarily have to be gay. In fact, generally speaking, everything we previously said about icons can be applied to gay icons. They are people who represent the gay audience's dreams and desires. They are symbols of an appealing way of life. They are relatable. Ever since the 50s, gay men have had very close relationships with divas, both from the screen and from the world of pop music. But for the sake of our analysis, we will focus on movie and television stars, while still keeping in mind that female singers and performers do receive and have always received a fairly similar treatment, as if they are idealized written characters. Movie icons such as Judy Garland, Cher, Marlene Dietrich, Joan Crawford, and the iconic characters they played like Dorothy, Tess, Amy Jolly, all have cemented themselves into gay culture. Quotes from The Wizard of Oz can still be read in banners at pride parades all around the world, and scenes from Whatever Happened to Baby Jane are still reenacted at drag shows. In the same way, more modern characters written with a new feminist sensibility like Cher from Clueless, Regina George from Mean Girls, Elle Woods from Legally Blonde, etc. all hold cultural relevance and the coveted icon status among younger gay folk. But why? It's pretty understandable that women consider them feminist icons. In fact, ever since female characters have started getting written for women and by women, they stopped in many cases being the stereotypical and misogynistic object of men's sexual desire, and more of a role model for women around the world. But what's their appeal to gay men? In order to answer this question, we need to take a step back. If the definition of an icon is a person who people admire and see as a symbol of a particular idea and way of life, why do gay men look up to female characters? Why can they look up to representations of other gay men? Well, to put it simply and maybe a bit simplistically, because most of them suck. In fact, the representation of gay subjectivities in media has been mostly negative since the beginning of time. When they weren't depicted as the butt of the joke for being effeminate, they were psychopaths and predators. When they weren't psychopaths and predators, they had a tragic story and/or a tragic ending. It's hard to make an icon out of a character who actively perpetuates the stereotypes and tropes which haunt the real life of gay people on a daily basis. Alright then, homosexual male characters are a no. But what makes a female character an icon to gay audiences? Is there a set of rules to write and portray an iconic character? Well, kind of. When an oppressed community looks for an icon, they project the kind of life they dream and desire onto her. If they can speak their mind and share their worldviews and live their life freely in fear of being pushed aside, their icon will be a strong-willed, outspoken, often wicked-tongued woman who knows what she wants. Their icon will be strong and resilient. It doesn't matter what people think of her. It doesn't matter how many traumas she faces in her life. She possesses the strength to push through it and bounce back. Her weapons could be snappy comebacks, superpowers, or literal deadly weapons. A whole new subgenre of movies focusing on Machiavellian women willing to do anything in order to get what they want has been popularized by Twitter and TikTok discourse over the last couple of years. It's called the Good for Her cinematic universe. Velma Kelly and Roxy Hart from Chicago get away with the murders of their husbands and become famous with their vaudeville act. Yes, good for them. The Scarlet Witch from Multiverse of Madness kills off a bunch of people throughout the multiverse in order to find her imaginary children. Mother, she deserves it. Iconic. Dani from Midsommar ends up joining a serial-killing Swedish cult after being gaslighted by her boyfriend, who ends up being burned alive. Legend. Honorable mention to Annalise Keating from How to Get Away with Murder. She's seen stuff and she remained iconic. Even when the icon doesn't exactly get her happy ending, Wanda still couldn't get her children at the end of the movie, and Dani most certainly lost her mind, gay people cheer because they still feel represented. When the character manages to live through or overcome a great deal of judgment, injustice and trauma, which are certainly prominent elements in the everyday life of gay people, she becomes someone to look up to. She becomes an icon. Bonus points if she does it with sass, wit and character. While these psychologically deep, complex and well-rounded characters base their icon status on an evidently emotional level, on the other side of the spectrum there's camp and hyperfemininity. Camp, as defined by Susan Sontag in her 1964 essay Notes on Camp, is, and I quote, a style or mode of personal or creative expression that is absurdly exaggerated, unquote. Camp aesthetics are characterized by the refusal and voluntary subversion of societal and cultural norms. In a world in which everything labeled as feminine is condemned as frivolous and frowned upon, camp celebrates the hyper-feminine. In a world that instills gender norms and encourages the clear-cut distinction between male and female, camp elevates the androgynous. It shouldn't come as a surprise that camp has always been reclaimed as a queer aesthetic and welcomed within the gay community. But outside of it, every exaggerated or overly feminine behavior is still very much condemned. But back to our point, in a society in which gay men can't be flamboyant and feminine in fear of being insulted or assaulted, their icon will obviously be fashionable and hyper-feminine and often very campy. As we already mentioned, if a man acts and dresses in a feminine way in a movie or a TV show, it's more often than not to make people, straight people, laugh, because that's what the hegemonic culture does with femininity. And even though women have often received a similar treatment to that of gay men by suffering from the feminine equals dumb or feminine equals superficial trope, the tendency to adopt a new point of view in the depiction of female characters has slowly arisen from the depths of male-dominated media, in what is defined as a shift from the male gaze to the female gaze. Female characters, as seen through the female gaze, are neither sexualized nor belittled as damsels in distress. and their femininity or hyperfemininity is never questioned or seen as a disadvantage. That's part of why they become iconic to gay men. Cher and Dion's feminine and campy outfits don't undermine their strong will and determination. Regina George and the Plastics ruled the school in checkered miniskirts and pink tank tops. Elle Woods uses her knowledge on all things girly in order to win a case in court and ultimately get a law degree, despite everybody doubting her because of her femininity alone. Uma Thurman's Poison Ivy looks so damn fierce while kicking ass in her supervillain campy getup. She's so iconic. Not to mention the bride from Kill Bill and her iconic costume. Each of these characters, whether they are known for their strength or their campy appearance and behavior, are now undeniably part of the gay pop culture landscape. Drag queens regularly perform as Cher Horowitz, the Scarlet Witch, and Annalise Keating, and quotes from Mean Girls and Clueless, such as
"Stop trying to make fetch happen,"
and
ugh, as if.
are stamped on gay boys' brains all over the world and still used as memes 20 to 30 years after the release of these movies. In conclusion, the phenomenon of gay icons in media could be the starting point for a reflection upon the representation of gay subjectivities in media. How is it that gay men still can make a list of gay male characters that they deem as iconic? Well, while progress is certainly being made, the road towards proper representation still seems long. I guess that in the meantime we'll have to rewatch Legally Blonde for the 100th time, but that's fine.